What is your job role in the theatre?
My job role in the theatre is the director, and I'm also artistic director of the Nottingham Playhouse Theatre, which means I'm the big boss.
So how did you get that role?
So in order to get the role, I had to do some interviews in front of a panel, and they chose me to do what I do now. I had to do 3 rounds of interviews, which is quite a lot. You're impressed, aren't you, Lily? I can tell. Yes.
How did you get into directing?
So I went to drama school actually. I trained to be an actor. And then I discovered I was rubbish at it. So then I started being a theatre director instead. And I worked as an assistant director, and then a resident director, and then an associate director, and then a revival director, and finally I became the director.
Why did you choose Holes?
I chose Holes because I read the book and absolutely loved it. I love the characters, Stanley Yelnats and all of his mates. I liked the story because it was really exciting and I didn't know what was going to happen next. I liked the Warden because she was really scary, and the yellow spotted lizards. And it just felt like it'd be a really cool thing to put on stage. Really theatrical, really exciting, and something that anybody of any age could enjoy it.
Did the Warden remind you of anybody when you were at school?
That's a really good question. The Warden did remind me of a head teacher that I had when I was 10, who was really scary, and all the kids were really scared of the head teacher, but I think the teachers were more scared than the kids of her. But she was great. She got stuff done because everybody was so scared of her, they didn't dare say no.
What are your favourite moments in Holes?
Oh, I have so many moments. It's such a good story. I like it when Zero and Stanley are on top of God's thumb and they have to eat a raw onion. And I make the actors do it on stage every day. And they hate it and then they smell. But the audience love it because you can smell the onion from the audience.
What's your favourite bit of the job and what's the trickiest bit?
My favourite bit is that I get to offer people jobs. So I get to say to the actors, you can have a job, and the designer and the lighting designer and the sound designer and the composer and the puppetry director and the choreographer, I get to choose all those people and I get to phone them up and say, you've got a job if you want one. The worst bit of my job, can I have 2 worst bits?
Yeah.
Thanks. My first worst bit is that sometimes I have to tell people no, because there's more actors that want the jobs than I can ever have space for. And my second worst bit is during the technical rehearsals, which is when we have to put the set and the costume and the lights together, and that's really long days and everybody gets really stressed and tired and they start snapping at each other and I have to keep calm.
Who is your favourite character in Holes and why?
Oh, that's a really tough question. I think my favourite character is probably Zero, because Zero is so quiet at the beginning and nobody knows what's going on in his head, and people assume that he's stupid because he doesn't speak much. But as the story goes on, you start to realise that he's really intelligent, and actually in the end he's the bravest character out of all of them, and he kind of saves the day.
So what makes a good script?
A good script is one that has twists and turns, so nobody's quite sure what's going to happen next. It's got believable dialogue, so the audience are really interested in the characters and they understand who they are as people. It needs to have a good balance of being quite serious and be gripping, but also have comic moments as well and be funny. And I quite like stuff that has like puppets and movement and music and songs as well, so it's a big theatrical experience.
When the rehearsal starts, which scenes do you think will be easy to direct, or which scenes do you think will be hard to direct?
I think the easiest scenes will be the ones where the characters are digging the holes, because we have real sand on stage and they have real shovels and we make the actors actually dig holes, and it's exhausting and they'll get sweaty and dirty, so that won't take much acting because we're actually making them do it. The hardest scenes, maybe there's a bit where the Stanley and Zero have to go on a journey up God's thumb, and it's an incredibly high mountain. And it's how do you do that on stage, because you can't have a real mountain on stage. So we have to do it in a really imaginative, creative way.
How do you think our school in Blackpool will react to the show?
I hope that you find it exciting. I hope that you think it's funny and you never get bored. But I also hope that it makes you think a little bit, because Holes has some really important themes about friendship and the importance of not judging a book by its cover or a person by their outside appearance. So I hope that it makes you think a little bit when you leave the theatre as well.
What do you think makes a good friend?
I think a good friend is somebody who will always be there for you no matter what. So they don't judge you and they're just supportive. What do you think makes a good friend?
Someone who has a lovely personality and is always nice to you no matter what.
Yeah, that's a good answer. What about you?
You can always rely on them and have their back.
Yes, that's good, and that's the message behind Holes.
Have you been to Blackpool before, and what did you like about it?
I have been to Blackpool before for work a couple of times. I've been to the Grand, such a beautiful theatre. I've worked there a couple of times. Two things I liked about Blackpool. One was the fish and chips, because they were really tasty. And the other thing was the theatre. The audiences were so enthusiastic and exciting, and I can't wait for us to bring our production of Holes and all the schools to come and see it. I'm going to set you a creative challenge. Using the song lyrics from If Only, from the novel and the play, we want you to write your own song called If Only. You write your own lyrics, and it's about how something could have been different if only